Kia ora. Sorry, that was my microphone. Kia ora. Haere mai ki te whare tauahi a mahi ia tauroa. Ko James Kemba, toko ingoa. Welcome everyone to the AGM of the Institute of International Affairs. Hamish is just on a count, and we know that there are more than 24 members present, so that part of the constitutional obligations being met, we can proceed. Members have received in due time the notification and date and location of the AGM, so we can proceed with the under the terms of the Constitution. I extend a particularly warm welcome to our patron, Sir Alan Satchinand, to board members of the fellow board members of the Institute, life members, honorary vice presidents, and all members here present today, including those who are joining us on Zoom. And I would just make a note that those who are joining us on Zoom are welcome to make comments or questions at the appropriate time using the Q&A function, and Rebecca will be monitoring that and drawing my attention to any questions which arise. They can see the proceedings here. We can't see them, although we will, unfortunately. I have some apologies to record, including that of the Honourable Sir Douglas Kidd, our former president, from Peter Kiley, Malcolm McKinnon, Matthew Francis, Claire Broughton, Michael Howard, Ha Nguyen, Dr. Ruben Azizian, our Auckland branch chair, who unfortunately is overseas at the moment, Francisca Long, Isabella Zabala, Dr. Rod Alley, Bob Bunch, Jack Lewington, one of our fellow board members, Esther Guy Meakin, and Brian Lynch, another former office holder of the Institute. Are there any other apologies that we should record that anybody knows of? Thank you. I just move that those apologies be noted. We have before you a draft agenda. This was circulated in advance by email, and there are hard copies available and also on the screen in front of you. There are no board vacancies this year, and therefore no elections to report back to you. There's one motion to change parts of the Constitution that the Executive Director received from the board, which has been sent to you by email and will be presented, discussed and voted on by members under agenda item 6. There were no other agenda items or changes received by the director from members in advance. But can I ask if any members wish to raise any other matters during the course of today's proceedings? If not, I would ask that I would ask that you would agree that the agenda be adopted. You have also amongst your papers, I hope, the minutes from last year's meeting. Are there any comments on those minutes? If not, could somebody move that they be adopted, please? And seconded. Thank you, Professor Holborough. Seconded, Dr. Grant. Thank you very much. Right, well, time to take a review of the proceedings. Just over a year ago, when we met at our last AGM, my predecessor as chair, Dr. Richard Grant, talked about our living in a period of considerable turbulence in international relations. Indeed, as I noted in my own contribution to the annual report now before you, 2024 was a trying year with the forces of disarray growing stronger. And I need hardly remind a well-read membership such as this present today, that so far 2025 has been presenting a little bit more of the same. And obviously certain individuals and certain policies are at the core. But I would suggest to you that the changes that are being wrought are deeper, more profound. They might first appear just from a study of percentage tariff figures. I heard the respected author, Robert Harris, saying similarly in a BBC interview last week that we are, quote, at the beginning of a new era and not just dealing with some short-term issues. Just a few days ago, the newly elected Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, spoke of deserving respect and of a partnership that will be very different from what had previously been the case. So even if the tariff clock is turned back, the intimate relations between allies and neighbours are now at question. Canada will shortly host the G7 summit, and Prime Minister Carney said it would be a real test whether the group was still the, and I quote him, the most like-minded of like-minded countries. And while this week we are seeing some more political challenges in places like Romania, we're also trying to absorb and take stock of the election outcomes in Australia and what those signals might mean for us here in New Zealand. I'm not going to go through the list of other events from my report. Suffice it to say that the political, security and environmental challenges, as well as their examination and discussion, provide plenty of reason for the continued attention by this institute and its several branches and its membership. It's perhaps indicative that the event numbers are up, as is membership. Throughout the country, we have in the last year hosted ministers, ambassadors, academic specialists and others. And next month, our national conference will bring together many experts and interested participants to address some of today's most pressing issues. And I hope that if you haven't already registered, you will do so. All the details are on the Institute website. End of advertisement. None of this work, of course, happens without your support and that of our key partners in pursuing the strategic plan adopted by our board. And in doing that, we have been able to maintain an active national office with the assistance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, to which we remain deeply indebted. And our warmest thanks also go to Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington, for hosting our office, as well as hosting many of the meetings that are run under national or Wellington branch auspices. And I'd like to acknowledge also the many partners for the events that have taken place, including Asia New Zealand Foundation, embassies, high commissions and other organisations. Events, of course, are only one part of our activities, and disseminating information takes many forms. Some of them are mentioned in various sections of the report before you. I do, though, as we come to the 50th year of New Zealand International Review, want to pay tribute to those who have ensured that this publication has continued over those years to make New Zealand's international relations and concerns better known here and overseas. Dr. Ian McGibbon, who has edited the magazine since 1981, has indicated his intention to stand down after the 50th anniversary edition appears at the end of this year, and we are on the lookout for a new editor. Ian's editorial heft will be sorely missed, although we do expect him to live up to the work, live up to the responsibilities he holds as a life member and remain an active contributor to the work of the Institute. Thank you, Ian. At the same time, as other publications have found, the costs of producing and mailing printed copies are becoming prohibitive, and we shall be looking at a primarily digital model. I should also mention that Volume 5 of New Zealand and World Affairs is well advanced. We had hoped it would be ready by mid-year in time for the conference, but some unanticipated challenges mean it will not appear until a little bit later. The fact that this is the 5th volume in the series attests to the long-standing commitment of the Institute to analysing and recording the significant events affecting our country's international relations. Other changes are afoot to allow us to keep pace, to keep relevant, and keep financial heads above water. I was struck last year by an intervention from one of our members who was asking for more diversity and representation in the organisation. And in terms of membership, it's especially pleasing to see that the number of younger members whose interests the Institute stands to serve in the coming decades is on the rise. But to anticipate another agenda item, it's also relevant to the board's move towards being able to address gaps in its own composition. It's not easy in a group of 7 elected members from across 7 branches of varying sizes to arrive at balance, whether it's balance in the form of geography or professional background, ethnicity, or even age. But what is clear to me, as someone who's been long involved with this organisation, is that its strength comes from its membership. And as much as we can, we look within the limited numbers to have that reflected in our board and in the board's deliberations. Talking of age, I have noted in my report the passing of some of our former stalwarts. 2 were mentioned by Dr. Grant at the 2024 AGM because they'd taken place earlier in that year. But I should, however, put on record the passing earlier this year of the Honourable Russell Marshall, a former president of this institute, a former minister, whose various portfolios included at one point foreign affairs. A number of us here have experience in working with Russell in one or more of his capacities, and he will be very much missed. Of course, some of our stalwarts are here present, including a few former office holders. Thank you. I'd just like to offer a special word of thanks to Emeritus Professor and Institute Life member Don Trow. I can personally attest to the fact that he was already overseeing the books of this institute in the mid-1970s because he happened to be my paymaster when I was Executive Secretary of the Institute. So perhaps we might collectively thank Don for more than 50 years of service to our work. Thank you, Don. And finally, a word of thanks to branch chairs and committees and student representatives and other volunteers for the hard work and long hours that go into maintaining high frequency, high quality programs for our membership. And to Vice Chair Dr. Serena Kelly and my other fellow board members, thanks for your time, for your insights, your dedication to ensure the smooth running of the organisation. It was of great help to me that my predecessor, Dr. Grant, remained on the board after he stood down as chair. But I'd also like to pay special tribute to our patron, Sir Anand Satchinand, who, on stepping down from board membership, has been of great assistance in watching carefully, as only a lawyer does, in watching carefully over the work of the board and the Institute. So on my own behalf, as well as the board, my thanks also to Executive Director Dr. Hamish McDougall and Administrator Yvonne Palmer for their sterling work in advancing the objectives of the Institute. Thank you very much. I've lost my agenda. Thank you, everybody. We come now to the presentation and noting of the annual report, including the financial statements and reports from branches. The annual report was circulated. You have copies, I hope, in front of you in electronic or hard form. I would thank the Executive Director and Administrator for putting that document together, and particularly to the branch chairs and Dr. Ian McGibbon for their reports. Thanks to our accountant, Libby Davis, for preparing the accounts, and of course to Professor Don Trow for reviewing them. I don't know if anybody has any questions on those things. If so, I'll happily pass them over to our Executive Director. No? If not, I would like to move that the annual report be presented and noted by the AGM. Is that agreeable? Thank you. Thanks very much. We come then to something which might appear arcane, but is actually prompted by a realization by some of us working day to day with the organization of something that we probably need to attend to and pin down in terms of the Constitution. I think this is the time I pass over to you, isn't it, Hamish? Yes, thank you.
Thanks. So the motion to change the Constitution was received by myself as the Executive Director from the board more than 30 days in advance of the AGM. Was circulated to members in advance of the AGM and is up here on the board showing the Constitution with track changes, and the communication also explained the board's reasoning for the change. In essence, the change would provide board members with the option to co-opt one additional member to the board to fill any skills or experience gaps. And under 8.2 of the Constitution, this would allow the board to comprise up to 9 members, 7 of whom are elected by members, 1 representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and 1 member co-opted by the board at its discretion. And the co-opted board member would have the rights of other board members except the right to vote. And then under a new 8.10 of the Constitution, the co-opted board member would be a member of the NZIIA and appointed for a period up to the next round of board elections. The board's reason for the change is the additional board member, if appointed, will help the board to ensure balanced representation and a range of requisite skills and experience, in addition to the 7 elected board members. And the ability for the board to make a limited appointment provides flexibility without compromising the vision of the Constitution, which is to have a small governance structure. So I'll hand back to you now, James.
I invite questions about this proposal, if there are any. Can we do have some microphones. Just bear with us for a moment. We'll get that to you.
Yes, just a question about the term of this co-option appointment. I noticed that it's to run up to the next round of board elections. And I just wondered whether you could indicate how frequently you think board elections are likely to happen in the future. I noticed this year, for the first time, of course, we haven't had the new Constitution for long, we're not having any elections, so it can run for more than a year. Do you think there will there likely to be periods where there'd be 2 years without an election, for example?
The Constitution provides well, in establishing the Constitution and the new structure, we split the membership of the board so that we wouldn't have the whole board being up for election in any 1 year. So about half the board, 3 members, terms finish 1 year, and the following year the term of 4 members expires. So in a 3-year cycle, there will always be elections in year 1 and 2 and not in year 3, if you follow me. The only peculiarity about this is that in the process of setting this up in the first place, we provided for, in order to create the split, we provided for 3 of us to serve only 2-year terms. That was simply a device in order to get the thing underway. But going forward, there should be elections in 2 of every 3 years for 3-year terms. And at the moment, board members are eligible to stand, members are eligible to stand for the board for a maximum of 2 terms. So next year, there will be elections for 3 places. In 2027, there will be elections for 4 places. Now, as to your point about that, an AGM takes place in May. The composition of the board might change somewhat, and we would suddenly discover we had nobody from Te Ika Maui, or we had no academics, or we had nobody with a certain professional background. And at that point, the board might decide, because it's an option at its discretion, the board might decide to bring somebody on the board as a co-opted member until the next elections. Now, theoretically, that could be until 2 years hence, but in practice, by the time of the time lag of the board meeting and having a discussion about it, determining what the vacancy or what the issue was, I would expect in practice a co-optee would serve no more than 18 months maximum, and conceivably less if there were elections coming up the following year.
And if a vacancy occurred fairly soon, there is here no impediment to continuing the term or of the co-opted member, because there's no bar on them being re-co-opted if the board wishes to do that, is there?
Exactly.
So I think it does make sense, yes,
Okay.
but I just wanted to be clear about it.
Thanks very much for that. Any other questions? If not, oh, sorry, Joshua. Sorry? Jody, sorry, I can't.
Just to clarify, so it could be any member. So for example, if someone had been expired out by the 2-term limit, the board could theoretically co-opt them for that for an additional period if it was needed for skills or experience gaps.
I guess so, but it would be a decision of the incoming board to make the point. The other point about it is that it is open also, of course, to a institutional or corporate member to be, because they are members, and the board could take somebody on from an institution. So it is just to seek flexibility and test it and see. I mean, the problem that we noted that had arisen was that we have 7 branches of varying sizes, and it's very hard to ensure that the board, as it's constituted by the elections, fully reflects both the professional background and also the branch interests as well. So the power will be invested in the board to do so, and it could, as Professor Trow said, involve taking someone from out of the ranks that you could theoretically, to your point, take somebody who had been previous member. I mean, it's entirely up to that, but it would be for the board to determine what the gap was, and if there was a gap, and what it was, and how you'd fill it. 3 steps. Christine, that microphone coming down here.
Excuse, this is just a minor grammatical suggestion that you take the opportunity of the change just to remove that "of" in the first line.
Yes, I will pass that on to the authors of the original Constitution, because it is only the words "agreeing" which we were proposing to change. But yes, well, yes. All right, thank you. Well, can I take it that the proposal is agreeable to you, with the possible removal of 2 letters, one beginning with O and one beginning with F? Could I have a show of hands, please, that you are agreeable to this proposal? I see a majority there. Anything from the from the from out on the wops? No, no. Okay. So, oh, you're here. Sorry, I was looking. One hand raised in favour. Yeah, thank you. All right, I think that we can take it. That's agreed. Thank you very much, everybody, for that and for bearing with us. I do like to take this opportunity now that this is passed to thank Sir Anand and Professor Rebel, with whom I worked very closely when we came to draft the original constitution. We had overlooked the fact that democracy being a fine thing, it didn't always produce all the balances that we were looking for in an organisation such as this. And we are a unique organisation. The Royal Institute doesn't have branches. The Australians, of course, have their state branches, but we're quite special. And for those of you who weren't, might like to be aware that we had a meeting with the branch chairs earlier today, and what is really significant is that each branch has its own chemistry, its own way of operating, and that's as it should be. But how we compress all that into a board of 7 is, I assure you, is a challenge. So thank you, everybody. We move on then to the Executive Director's presentation of the review, and I invite Hamish to take the floor.
Kia ora koutou, and thanks, James. Those who have been to previous AGMs will recall that we're sort of operating under 4 streams of work under our strategic plan: expert discussion, communications, administration, governance, and financial. So I'll spend just a little bit of time talking about how we've fared under each of these streams in the past year in 2024, and then talk a little bit about the next iteration of the strategy, which will be applied from this year onwards, because we're at the end of a 3-year cycle and are looking to develop a new 3-year strategy with annual sort of iterations. So as James already mentioned, a very good year for expert discussion and events in 2024. There's over 108, so there's 108 events across the network. As a cricketer, I always think, cracking the century is a good reason for celebration. So this is a testament to the vitality, I think, of the branches, branch committees, working with the board and the national office. Well done. The average attendance was up, and we were also scoped the conference and deployed a number of AV content via the events. On the publications and research side, there's also been some good progress, if not totally as far as we'd like to go. The New Zealand World Affairs book, which James has mentioned, is progressing. We've enhanced the designs of New Zealand International Review. Still some work to be done on attracting additional revenue for the review through sponsorship and so forth, but a reasonably good year on publications as well, and echo the thanks to Ian McGibbon and also my co-editors on the book for the work they've done there. Communications, again, another very good year. We brought in some additional communications resource last year, which is great, and I think we're really expanding our audience via our online presence particularly. So that's good. Administration and governance, again, that's some good progress there. We're sort of working on governance policies, which are always a work in progress, I think, because we need to not only keep up with the external environment, but think about legislation changes and so forth. But we're also working on the administration and governance in the past year. So we didn't have any events in Dunedin or Hamilton. People would have heard me talk in the past, perhaps, about interest in establishing branches there, which haven't quite come to fruition. We do have opportunities perhaps there, and also in Rotorua, there's some interest in setting up a branch, but we're unable to land that last year. And then finance, we had some key metrics there. We achieved 2 out of the 3. There was a slight dip in corporate institutional members, although I'd expect that to come up again this year off the back of the conference, which tends to be attractive to those kind of members. And we, as I'll explain a bit in a moment, we've got some good external funding for some of our initiatives. How does that look in sort of non-financial data? As James said, events are up 3rd year in a row, memberships are up 3rd year in a row. We've done really well on the student members as well. So across the board, I think it's a good indication that the Institute has got some good momentum up and is sort of reaching its target audiences. How did that look money-wise? So you may recall in 2023, we took an additional one-off grant from MFAT of over $200,000. And the plan for this year was to essentially spend down some of that grant. And we budgeted a $118,000 loss initially. And we actually came in, you'll see there was actually an $18,700 deficit for the year. So we came in a lot better than expected. And there are several reasons for that. One is, as I was saying before, we managed to get some external funding, particularly for our Pacific workshop activity in the middle of the year from Conrad Adenauer Stiftung and the Pacific Cooperation Foundation. We had higher interest revenue. The salaries for staff increases were relatively minor and were less than budgeted, and also the Palmerston North branch brought in around $28,000 in grants on their own right. So that all kind of resulted in an $18,000 loss for the year, which was, as we say, spending down some of the one-off grant that we got from MFAT. How does that equate in assets and liabilities? You can see here that the National Office has got around $500,000 in the bank, and the board, as I'll explain a bit more shortly, has taken a view as part of prudent management to retain similar kind of levels into the future in case there's any funding shocks, similar kind of levels with small increases to account for inflation and so forth. So just noting that. And this metric we introduced last year, as I think it gives some a bit more transparency to branch members about how their branch is doing financially. And you can see here a pretty good story to be told, with nearly all the branches kind of increasing their cash in the bank over the year, and all in a reasonably healthy position, which is good. So looking forward to the kind of coming year, as James already suggested, there are a couple of factors which we as an institute need to be mindful of. One is the external environment, which is often euphemistically described as turbulent. And there's also, an obvious constriction in government spending and so forth. So both of these are kind of playing out into our strategy, which is kind of external looking, hasn't been developed as a result of some kind of navel gazing. We've also looked a little bit at the international affairs ecosystem and where the institute, our institute, kind of fits into that, because ultimately we want to be not duplicating what other organizations are doing. We want to be adding value that other organizations can't. And we can see out there are a number of quite small resource poor organizations, a number of organizations that are focused on Asia, a number are doing sort of like us, a number of small scale events. So we need to think about differentiation, complementing and or collaborating with these other organizations to make sure that we're adding value. So all that in mind, we've developed a strategy which has 3 prongs. Last time around we had 4. This time around, the first prong, first sort of theme is knowledge, enhancing international affairs knowledge. And you see last time around we had communications kind of separate from encouraging discussion, but we've kind of merged them together because they're really two sides of the same coin. We also want to improve financial sustainability and progress our governance and administration. So that's essentially the strategy for the next 3 years in a single slide or in three sentences. So looking at the first aspect of that, I've presented this slide at previous AGMs, but it's quite useful, I think, because it kind of talks about, on the left and the right side, two of the core constituencies of the Institute, which are the university students and late career and retired people. And we want to keep those kind of people involved in the Institute because they're very committed and giving of their time and so forth. But we also want to make sure we're catering to people who are mid-career and are actually making decisions that can influence New Zealand's economic, social, environmental and security well-being. We're aware these people are harder to get to. They're time poor, they often seek specific knowledge, and they want to consume information on their own terms. So we've given a little bit of thought. This is a model of communication whereby the further up the pyramid we go, the better we're able to sort of provide these kind of people who are decision makers in the space with knowledge to essentially make decisions. So if you could imagine, the smaller scale events are somewhere towards the bottom two tiers of the pyramid there, providing information and data. We actually, as well as keeping those events going, want to think about research, analysis, synthesis to try and move into a more sophisticated space, which is providing those decision makers, be they in government, academia, NGOs or business, give them with the knowledge that they can sort of action in decisions. So how does that kind of look in strategic terms? We are quite interested in moving towards thematic rather than regionally focused work content. So thinking about the major themes around security, economics, environment, technology, etc., and how it kind of intersects with international politics and indeed intersect with each other, and kind of presenting those in thematic ways through our events and other communications. Which is not to say that we're totally discounting sort of regional focused activity, because we also see the Pacific as an important area, important region for New Zealand, obviously, which is less well covered by the international affairs community than, say, New Zealand's relations with Asia, which has a number of other organisations kind of working in that space that we don't necessarily want to be competing with. And as per previous strategies, we want to bring together the different perspectives from government, business, academia, NGOs. So this means a little bit more focus on research and analysis and discursive events, diversity of speakers, more focus, you might say, at least from the National Office, on some of the larger scale events, which give greater impact than some of the smaller scale events. This is another slide I presented before, but it's just focusing our communication on taking people through a sort of journey of being completely unaware of the Institute, making them aware through social media, web search, word of mouth, and so forth, making them consider what the Institute does and getting involved, converting them into membership, and then making them loyal members and volunteering their time and going out and advocating for us. So we're trying to get communications that sort of hit each level of that funnel to move people down. And these are our key messages, which we're trying to communicate all the time about what the Institute is and the value it kind of brings to the international affairs community. And then beneath those strategies, we've got a whole lot of metrics, which I present to the board at every board meeting, and I'm not going to go into them now. Partly, James already mentioned a number of the key deliverables in the international affairs knowledge space this year: the conference, the book, New Zealand World Affairs book, the review, and so forth. getting a new editor for the review, and also the next iteration of our international politics in the Pacific work. So moving on to the second strand of the strategy, which is the financial approach. The board, as I was saying before, has deemed it prudent to try and retain around 2 years of operating expenses, so that having that clarity helps us to make spending decisions and so forth. We're also interested in diversifying our revenue. So on the one hand, we're very grateful to NZIIA and the support they provide. We couldn't do what we do without them, but and we want to retain that. But on the other hand, we're also looking to diversify. It's like an NZIIA plus strategy. And so we're proactively looking at areas of doing that, including project work, sponsorship, possibly philanthropy. That requires a bit of work to build capability and governance to pitch for and manage these projects. But I'm pleased to say that last year we pitched for a project along with Stantec, which is a global consultancy firm, to undertake a project with the European Union, looking at public diplomacy and policy dialogue in New Zealand. So that'll bring a new revenue stream of, we think, around $90,000 a year into the institute, which is positive, and yeah, looking at other opportunities into the future. And then the third prong is governance and administration. So there are a couple of things that will be evident of relevance to members here. One is the constitutional change that we've just voted through, which I think will help improve the governance of the institute, and also thinking about greater efficiency between the national office and branches. And one of the things we're looking at doing or proposing is a flat percentage that gets retained by the national office of 30%. So every individual membership fee that gets paid to the institute. At the moment, the national office retains about 44%, but it's a complex calculation based on the number of subscribers to the New Zealand International Review. We just want to strip that away and have a basic 30%, half of which goes to GST and the rest retained by the national office, and the remainder going to the branch for their continued benefit and delivery of what they do. And as per the others, there's a range of measures for that. So what does that look like budget-wise in the coming year? As you see, the big ticket items, the conference is a big six-figure substantial sum, which we need to try and make it wash its face if we can, although it is a challenge given the current funding environment. And if we can do that and bring in, deliver the EU project and bring in some other sources of revenue, we're aiming to make a small surplus on the year. So I'll conclude. It should, yeah. I noticed that as I was speaking. Yeah, apologies. Yeah. That was the 2025 budget as per. It's also included in your annual report. Questions? Are there any questions or questions?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So my question is that you mentioned, Hamish, you mentioned about Dunedin and Hamilton. We don't have branch. I would like to know why.
Well, historically, we have had branches there in the past, most recently in Hamilton, but the person who was running the branch retired up to Auckland, and I have had discussions with academics at Waikato about restarting that, but they feel it's not for them at this moment. So yeah, that and then likewise Dunedin, that goes back further into the past, and Emeritus Professor Ravel would know much more about that than me, but Again, obviously there's some world-class academics down there. There's a good student population, and we'd dearly like to restart a branch down there. We have had ad hoc events organised down there by people like Jeffrey Miller and so forth, but yeah, we haven't been able to get a new branch going there, or restarted, I should say. Yeah, so this was an idea to create a group of people that could advise the Institute, particularly on new revenue streams, and also potentially other aspects. The board signed off the terms of reference, just wasn't implemented in the last year because of my time constraints. But what we did do as part of the bid for the EU project was identify a number of people that could potentially act as subcontractors on that. So yeah, it was partially achieved, but hasn't been implemented as yet. Sure. Yep. Yep. If anyone didn't hear that, there was a request to circulate the PowerPoint by email to members. So there's 28 different membership categories, each with different subscriptions. Yeah, they're on the website, and that, so all those categories pay different amounts. The number of members, do you mean broken down by branch, or yeah, it's in here. Yeah, so the 542 paid members, 70 corporate institutional, 704 student, which this is also in the annual report. Sorry.
Thanks, Hamish. To the point raised earlier about branches in Hamilton and Dunedin, so much depends on the hard work of committees, volunteers, and a branch does not exist without the will of people to establish it. There's nothing in our constitution to stop it happening, other than having people who are prepared not only to get it started, but to keep it going. And that's why I said before how grateful we are to members and to committees and to volunteers for the work they do behind the scenes, because that's what enables an event to be run successfully. But thank you for the question. And if, by the way, if you're offering to establish a branch, please come and see Hamish afterwards. That would be good. We would dearly love to re-establish in Hamilton, and if we could. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hamish. Thank you for the questions. As he indicated, the PowerPoint will be available, and other material was in the report. So can we agree to note the annual plan and budget, please? Thank you very much. And that brings us to, although I did ask before whether anybody had any other questions or things, but this is the time. This is a very efficient meeting. We're running 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So question from Nelson Harper, our branch chair from Palmerston North.
Thank you. I was just wondering, with the branches that don't currently have committees, and then for Rotorua as well, whether would be a viable option to look at like a seed grant or something to go out to establish the committees, considering there would be operating expenses and running events and advertising to get these things going.
Yes, well, the Hamilton branch actually has $4,000 of legacy funding from the previous committee, which is sitting in the bank. So if anyone was to do that, would want to make sure the governance was set up before, but the board could potentially hand that over. But yeah, that is worth thinking about, bearing in mind we do have budget constraints and so forth. But yeah, maybe as an initial, like a launch event or something, we could look at some initial budget up front. I haven't discussed it with the board, but
Yeah. I mean, Nelson, the issue isn't necessarily money, it's people. And you know, when I think back to the Timaru branch, for instance, and others that have, and indeed the beginning of the Hawke's Bay branch, which have been run, well, not run, but have been the work of really dedicated individuals, and that's where we have to start. And it is why we like to draw on people who think that they, get out of Wellington for a quiet life, but happy to go and live somewhere else, and they get drawn back into keeping our branches going. But it's people. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Any other questions? If not, I would like to thank you all for coming this afternoon. We do have an item of business to attend to, as per the Constitution, both the old one and the new one, at the close of this meeting. So I will invite the board members to remain, but for the rest of you, but please leave some for us. I invite you to repair to the foyer for some refreshment. Please note that the refreshments will continue after the minister's speech. Could I ask you please to be seated here by about 10 to 6 so that the minister can start promptly at 6 o'clock. And there will be, I should warn you, quite a few more people coming. So come and get the best seats when you can. But again, on behalf of the board, on behalf of the director and administrator, I do want to thank you all for your participation today, your ongoing attention to the detail of this organisation. It's quite unique, and it exists for you, but it exists because of you. So with that, I will declare this meeting closed and look forward to seeing you back here at 10 to 6 in time for Minister Collins's speech. Thanks very much, everybody.